have joined in? Are you on, Alvin? Hi, good morning, and welcome to this course on organizational development. Very happy to meet all of you who have enrolled for this course. My name is Vishwanath. My full name is Vishwanath Joshi, and I'm a part of the faculty team at SSODL and have been with Symbiosis for many, many years now. So I'll be facilitating this course on organizational development and change. And it's a very interesting course and a topic or a subject that you will find interesting because of its relevance in today's context, especially if you are a working professional and you are seeing organizations in action, then you will find this course very relevant because what this subject or course deals with is really what organizations need today very, very intensely because of the obvious business situation or circumstances that organizations find themselves in. And everybody is trying to look for answers to the typical challenges that organizations have today. So what are those challenges and what does this subject have for us is something that we'll uncover as we go along. The idea is to really give you a very broad overview in the time that we have in this course so that then I'm hoping it will generate enough interest, enough curiosity in each one of you to explore more as a part of your career growth and development. For last 20 plus years that I have been teaching this course, every time I'm teaching this course, I find something new. And while some of the fundamental principles that are highlighted in this course remain the same, the way these principles are applied or are getting uncovered in the day-to-day life is very interesting thing to watch out. For example, a lot of organizations for many decades now have been struggling to become more democratic than control oriented. They are trying to look at how do you create structures that are decentralized, where empowerment is a way of life, that employees at the lowest level are able to make decisions that affect them on a day-to-day basis and in the best interest of the organization. While saying all this is very easy, doing it is not necessarily easy. Actually making this happen and ensuring that employees at different levels have the freedom and autonomy to make decisions and carry out those decisions in the best interest of the company, the customers, is not an easy thing to achieve, not easy thing to do, obviously because organizations are not designed for this. Now, this means if you look at this as a case in point, you will realize that change needs to happen at several levels in different parts of the organization so that the last employee, as we call them, the feet on the street or the foot soldiers, those who are closest to the customer, serving and interacting with the customer, they truly feel that they are empowered. They truly feel that they belong to this organization. There is commitment and engagement. Now, what changes need to happen? So if you look at this as a case in point, one, some change needs to happen in the leadership mindset that now each of the leaders in the organization needs to start looking at their role differently. So that's a one big change that needs to happen. Second, maybe some changes need to happen at a structural level where the division of labor, the distribution of authority, the communication, the reporting relationships, these need to change so that the person at the lowest level is able to make decisions, is aware of what decisions to make, how to make them, how to carry them out. So the third level of change that needs to happen is change in the skill levels of people, not just at a leadership level, but also those who are expected to benefit from this change. The frontline employees, they need to develop new skills. They need to develop new mindsets. So that's a third level of change that needs to happen. So we talked about three levels of change, right? Change in the leadership mindset, change in the structure of the company, and change in the skill levels of people down the level. Now, again, talking about these changes are very easy. We can easily conceptualize these changes in a classroom. But imagine actually making this happen in the organization. There will obviously be resistance to these changes. And overcoming that resistance so that there is a benefit to the organization, there is a benefit to the leader and the led, is really what OD is all about. It's a method, it's a process, it's a mindset to make the organization more effective, more efficient, more change ready, so that everybody benefits. So this field of study, that's why I said it's a very interesting field of study, because it deals a lot with the people side of the organization, the culture side of the organization, the change side of the organization. And there is a method to this. There's a science to this change process. And that's really what OD teaches us. Okay. From a career point of view, at least in my 25 years experience in HR and OD, I have found that a lot of HR professionals and sometimes even non-HR professionals aspire to go into organizational development as a career option because they find OD very, very impactful. They find OD less administrative, more strategic, more impactful, and therefore it's an aspiration, it's a career aspiration for most HR people to develop themselves into OD consultants, or as we call them, change agents. So that's another advantage of this subject on OD. And third, obviously, is the fact that while the first advantage is relevance, second advantage is from a career point of view. The third big advantage that I have noticed personally in my career is that OD is a way of thinking. Okay, OD is an approach that you take, and therefore it also has a lot of personal enrichment ideas. How do you become better as a professional? How do you become more effective? How do you become more impactful? How do you as a person, as a professional, become better in terms of your quality of life, quality of thinking? So that's the third advantage of learning OD. And that's the reason why I am personally excited that I have this opportunity to share with you my knowledge, my experience, and my understanding of this subject. Of course, we have a curriculum like in a university setup, very well designed curriculum, and we have roughly about 8-10 sessions to complete this course. Yeah. So as we get started, 2 or 3 things from a course point of view. One, uh, I have some slides which of course will help us keep on track as far as the coverage and the curriculum is concerned. And as always, a summary of those slides will be available to you for your reading. Second, there is a very good text on organizational development. It is called Organizational Development, by French and Bell. I'll just put that in the chat for all of you, those who are going to view this later. French and Bell, these are co-authors. It's called Organizational Development. It's a very good text that you can for preparing for this course. As always, based on the university prescription, we have a couple of internal assignments and of course a term end exam. So what I'll keep doing is as we go through the course, I'll of course keep mentioning some important topics for you to revise well so that you're also not just understanding the subject, but you're also well prepared to give your term end exam. Yeah. So with that, again, welcome and let's get started. So we'll get started with some introductory thoughts and then of course a very clear definition of what OD is. So in today's session, I intend to cover and complete the introductory part of the topic of organizational development and change. And then of course, from subsequent sessions, we're going to take up some of those topics and look at them in slightly more details. Okay, so let me just put up my slide. Just give me a moment. Yeah. Right. So here it is. Now, when we talk about OD, what are the various things that are connected or that are integrated with OD? And you'll be surprised as to how many subjects, other subjects that you might be going through in your specialization course are actually connected to OD. You will see many of them. For example, your subject on organizational behavior talks about teamwork, and so does OD. So in fact, organizational development at the heart and core of organizational development is teamwork, because we know this. If organizations have to become effective, they have to promote collaboration as a way of life, as a cultural attribute. Otherwise, organizations can't get better because no longer are organizations a one man's job, right? It's not even a one department job. All departments, which means all teams, have to come together to do a great job together so that the organization flourishes. OD is also about leadership, because ultimately leadership is that engine that puts all these, if you have to take a train context or analogy, then all these bogies are ultimately driven by the engine, and that engine is leadership. And when I say leadership, I don't mean only top 3, top 4, top 5 people in the company, but leadership as a role at every level in the organization has to be effective, has to be strong enough that it keeps the organization together internally and drives the organization forward in a competitive environment. So you can't underestimate the role of leadership as a significant factor driving organizational effectiveness. So OD also has component of leadership. OD also has a component of the purpose of the organization, which is normally defined in the vision, mission, the values, the purpose statements, and all these aspects are also an integral part of what comprises organizational development, organizational effectiveness. Then you also have elements of talent, because and as we move forward, we'll talk about the HR interventions for organizational development. And talent management is a very important element of how do you make an organization effective. And we know this from our HRM course that there are at least 4 parts of talent management which are important to be well coordinated. One, talent acquisition, to be able to acquire talent. Then you have an element of talent development, develop talent through your training, coaching, mentoring. Then you have talent reward and recognition, because this has a lot to do with your ability to make the talent perform to the best of its ability. And fourth is, of course, talent engagement. Now, some of us might wonder, hey, where is talent retention, right? So if you put all this together, and if you do all these things together very well in an organization, then retention is an outcome, right? Retention is a result of getting the right people on the right jobs. Otherwise, they get frustrated and leave. Developing the talent. If they don't have scope for development, growth, learning, why the hell will they stay with you? Then recognizing and rewarding that talent so that that talent gets converted to performance. And finally, engaging them, making them feel valued, making them feel involved, and then they stay with you longer. So a bit of OD also has a lot to do with how do you manage your talent. Yes, sure. Like we said, engagement has a lot to do with motivation, and motivation has a lot to do with engagement. Therefore, how do you motivate the organization to move in a single direction? And of course, all these you will see are ultimately interrelated, right? For example, leadership has a huge role to play in motivation. Right? Similarly, if you don't feel valued in your team, you get demotivated. So teamwork and motivation are connected. The 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 most critical concept in OD is culture. It's a common way of life in the organization. And therefore, how do you build and sustain a culture that enables the organization to be effective? That's another concept that's important in OD. Then OD is ultimately linked to business. And some of you might have read about what we call McKinsey's 7S framework, which has elements of skills, staff, strategy, style, shared values, systems, and structure. When all this is put together, the 7S's, that is what makes an organization. So how do you put all these things together so that the organization becomes effective? That's again a concept in OD. Then OD has a lot to do with change. Like I just mentioned in my opening example, that if there is a resistance to change in the organization, how do you minimize resistance, maximize support for change so that the organization moves in the forward direction? Then, well, in OD, we talk a lot about learning organizations, organizations that continuously learn so that they develop, they grow, they change, and they become effective ultimately. Then we look at how, therefore, organizational development is about conflicts and managing those conflicts in a productive way. Because ultimately, when a diverse group of people come together, there are bound to be conflicts. There's no organization without a conflict. Well, if there's an organization without a conflict, then that's a problem actually. So conflicts are important. Conflicts can be productive depending on how they are managed, which also means that an organization needs to have the ability to deal with conflicts in a productive way. Again, that's not an easy thing to do. You have to do something for this to happen. Then organizational development has a lot to do with communication, interpersonal relationships. Positive relationships in the organization lead to better change readiness. If people don't have trust on each other, then they will not support each other. Then they'll pull the organization in different directions. Now, that's not the best thing to happen for the organization. Like I said, organizations are about relationships. They're also about problem solving. Every organization at some stage has a problem to solve. So there are two or three problems that I keep hearing from all organizations, many organizations I consult with. One is talent as a problem. How do you manage talent? Second, how do you manage the the growth? Because along with growth comes a lot of problems, including how to sustain the growth, how to make it consistent. And third, of course, is how do you become more and more competitive? Because if you're doing better, the chances are your competition is doing even better. So as a company, that's a problem to solve. And problem solving is not just about the problem, right? It's also the people who are a part of the problem. So OD looks at how to deal with the people issues while solving organizational problems. And with all this, organization development in a very simple way, in a layman's language, is about something we try to help companies do better. It's as simple as that. It's an organizational improvement strategy. And every organization today wants to get better, right? It can't stay at the same level. Even if it is if it's a high performing organization, it constantly needs to get better, because like I said, if you're doing better, the chances are that your competition is doing even better. So it's an organizational improvement strategy. Where did this field come from? Well, in 1950s and 60s, there was a lot of study, research about group dynamics and managing change. So OD actually came from these fields to say, okay, is there a method? Is there a technique? Is there a science of helping organizations manage change? And that's how OD was born. We'll of course take a look at the definition, but these are some key thoughts in what is OD therefore about. OD involves long-term, planned and sustained efforts. Now, this is very interesting, right? Because a lot of times organizations engage in organizational development, but in a very short-term basis. Like, for example, you do a training program for all your managers on managerial skills. Now, while that is a part of OD, by itself, it doesn't make a difference because it's too short term. And therefore, OD is something that's long term, that's planned. For example, we talk about innovation. Well, some innovation keeps happening when people come together, but is it a planned innovation? Do you have a goal in mind? Are there resources? Are people engaged? Are there ideas coming on the table? Well, sometimes these things also happen, but they happen once in a while. Like I keep saying, they happen when people are in a mood, right? Or they have nothing to do. But are these sustained efforts? Do they continue? Are they repeating themselves? Because, and that's possibly true of our personal lives as well, right? That when there is something that we do and do it for a long term in a planned way, not in a haphazard way, and we do it in a sustained way over a period of time, then you get the advantage. And that's exactly what OD is also about. And the idea is to help businesses function better. So this is really what, in a very simple language, in a layman's language, OD is about. It's an organizational improvement strategy. And in a while from now, we'll look at what are the different dimensions of that organizational improvement. But till now, it is just a very simple understanding of what do we mean by organizational development. Okay, let me just take a pause here and see if Okay, I can see Akriti. Akriti, hi, welcome.
Hello, sir.
Hey, where are you logging in from?
Sorry, I couldn't hear. Come
Where
again?
are you logging in? Where are you attending this program from?
Okay, I am right now in my hometown, Prayagraj.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. So you've had the busiest last few months, is it?
Yeah, we are working too, and plus we have kids, so very busy,
Must
very, very busy.
must be tough. Must be tough. Are you working somewhere?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. And what's the role that you have?
Talent acquisition.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, all right. So some of these things that we'll talk about will make a lot of sense to you.
Yes, yes, yes.
All
Completely.
right. Okay, all right. Great. So are you with me so far, Akriti?
Yeah, yeah.
No. All
I'm
right.
with
Okay. Great.
you.
So let's continue this discussion.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So like I said, this is really a very simple layman's understanding of what OD is about. So how does one do OD? Now, again, this is a very, very simple way of understanding it. We'll go to the complex part a little later. But how do we help organizations improve? First, by knowing that change for the better is not an happy accident, but it has to be worked on, which means that OD is a process. It's a method. It's a certain way of bringing that change and making the organization more effective. It's not something that happens by chance. Second, OD also involves getting someone who knows how to do this. Because generally, what happens is that when you are a part of an organization, you either feel that everything is wrong or nothing is wrong. Now, for a change to happen, you first need to acknowledge that yes, we need to get better. And that requires a certain objectivity, that requires a certain third person view. And that's exactly what OD consultants do. So you bring in somebody who knows how to bring about a change. And this is very, very important, right? Before you change, you first know where you are, which means you have to first find out what is before we decide what should be, which also means that OD requires first to understand, to find out, to discover, to research what is our current state. So if you know what the current state is, then you can decide where to go, which path to take, which direction to start walking so that you can reach your destination. And therefore, a lot of OD in terms of understanding where you are and where you want to go and how do you want to reach there is about people. So what people think, I think that this is a toxic workplace. Now that's thinking. How do people feel? I feel disengaged here. And I believe that nothing can happen in this company. Now, all these things are important to know because how people think, how people feel, what people believe is all going to impact how people behave. And ultimately, when you say organizational development, organizational change, organizational effectiveness, it all means that people have to start behaving differently for the company to get better. And if people have to behave differently, they have to think, feel, and believe differently, see things differently. Now, if you have to change that, you have to first know what is the current state of their thinking, current state of their feeling, current state of their belief. Then you can do something to change that. So this is data. Fourth, or rather fifth point is how we do things is as important as what we do. Or we serve customers. How do you serve customers? We make products. How do you make products? Yeah. We are a, like, in my context, from the background I come from, companies say we are a great place to work. And the question we ask is, how are you a great place to work? What do you do that makes you a great place to work? So knowing how we do things is as important as what we do, because a lot of times the how is connected with experience. How we serve customers is the experience that you create for your customers. And like in the first example, we were talking about how work is designed and people are connected, impacts their work. And finally, any change for the better must be total, not piecemeal. I can't make a small change and expect a big change to happen. I can't make a change in one department and expect organizational change. I can't just change one process and expect that everything will be changed. So the change that you do must be total change, not a small change. Of course, you can put all these small changes together, which means that you have to work on every part of the organization, not just one part of the organization. Oh, the sales team must change its attitude. Doesn't necessarily mean that the entire organization's attitude will automatically change. Therefore, you have to understand how people are connected, how work is designed, and all this impacts the overall change that you make in the organization. So, in a very simple way, to understand OD, we need to understand that OD is about change. And to make a change for the better, you have to put small changes together in a planned way with people, not without them. You can't do this like one HR department or one OD consultant. And this change involves ultimately how people behave, which means it involves what people think, how people feel, what they believe. And therefore, collecting data on all these fronts is very important to bring about that ultimate change, which is to make the organization better. So how of the OD has a lot to do with data, people, process, and ensuring that there is a plan. OD is not unplanned. OD can't happen haphazardly. OD can't happen randomly. It has to happen in a very planned, systematic manner. Of course, not everything is predictable. So claiming that we will know everything in OD is not a fair claim. Some things will emerge, but in the way you are managing or running an organizational development program is a planned way, not an unplanned way. Right? So that's an important thing to understand about what is OD. So, piecemeal actions, like I said earlier, training a group of managers or changing the structure or bringing a new process or changing a policy. These are not OD programs. These can be a part of an OD program, but by itself, they are not OD programs because they are very small chunks of what organization is made up of. And just because you have made a change in one thing doesn't mean that there'll be an automatic change in the other thing. So the major themes in OD that keep coming up again and again are aspects like planned change, collaborative consulting, which means that you do it together. Now, if you look at collaborative consulting, whom are you collaborating with? Whom are you consulting with? Who is a part of this? One, of course, you're collaborating with employees. You can't get them to change without involving them in change, right? So when you are doing an OD program, employees are involved. Yeah. Of course, those who drive work on the ground, the managers, the supervisors. Sure, OD can't even be thought of without involving consulting the leadership team of the organization. And like we just said, you normally have an OD consultant, somebody like me, who's an outsider to an organization. I don't work for one single organization anymore, so I'm not a full-time employee, but I work with all these three people in an organization, collaborate with them to bring about a change. So one of the major themes in OD is collaboration. The how of change is through collaboration. Like we just said, OD has a lot to do with data. It has a lot to do with research. So that's another theme in OD. What are you trying to focus on? The culture, the processes, and the structure. How the work gets done, that's the structure. The processes, like for example, decision-making process. It's a very important process in any organization. How do decisions get made? And that part of that is also the culture. So do decisions get made in a collaborative way or in a unilateral way? Now that's the culture of the organization. So when you're looking at OD, you're looking at all these three things together. Like we said, it's not a piecemeal system change. It's a total system change. And therefore, let me go to a definition of OD. And this is a definition from French and Bell. It's a long definition, but it's a very comprehensive, very interesting definition, which talks about everything that is a part of an OD program in any organization. So one, OD is a long-term effort. It's not something that happens in a week or in 10 days. It's a long-term effort. You can't even think about OD unless you get support from the top management. So long-term effort led and supported by top management. Again, a very important element of what makes any program an OD program. Now, support for what? One, support to improve the visioning of the organization, ability to see the future, ability to think about how to prepare for that future. Then, like earlier I was saying, to, to, to build empowerment in the organization. You can't have centralized decision making anymore. Therefore, how do you empower people? How do you make them feel that they have the freedom to make decisions that impact them on a day-to-day basis? How do you keep learning as an individual, as a unit, as an organization? How do you support learning culture? How does the organization continuously take data, information, process it, build insights, make decisions based on that information? So it's a learning process. Of course, organizations are not without problems. Different companies have different problems to solve. So how do you improve the problem solving processes? People coming together, listening to ideas, being patient, yeah, listening. Now, doing all this is OD. through an ongoing collaborative management of organizational culture. Like we said, collaboration between different people at different levels. That's how you build a great culture in the organization. Now, the focus of OD is how do you help the teams get better? So there's a special emphasis on the culture of intact work teams and other team configurations. Sometimes there are temporary teams, sometimes there are permanent teams, sometimes people come together only for a small project. So how do you also help them work better as a team? In the procedure part of OD, there is a consultant facilitator role, somebody generally from outside who will come in and facilitate this process of change. And that person brings in the knowledge of behavioral science. Like I said, ultimately, organizational change is about how people behave and are they behaving differently, which helps you make the organization better and through a lot of action research, which means data analysis, information. So all this put together is how an organizational development is defined. It's a long-term effort led and supported by top management to improve the organization's visioning, empowerment, learning, and problem-solving processes. How do you do that? Through an ongoing collaborative management of organizational culture with special emphasis, special focus on the culture of intact work teams and other team configurations, and using a consultant facilitator role. That's the methodology and the technology and theory of applied behavioral science. So you look at the theories and technology of applied behavioral science, getting people together so that you can bring a change in the behavior. And that includes action research, research that is actionable, not research for the sake of research. Yeah. So this is really what the definition of OD is about. And this is really what OD comprises of. Yeah. So let me take a pause here and just give you some time to reflect on this definition. Sorry. I should have put it on. Yeah. So when we started this session, I said OD is about many things, including talent. So now you see that it's not just talent management as a process, it's much more than that. But at the same time, it's also about talent. It's also about getting the best of your talent. It's about best utilization of the skills and capabilities of your talent. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pause from the theory and I'm going to show you one OD example. Okay. And you will know what I mean when I start playing the video for you. This video is an amazing example of OD. Okay. And in this case, an organizational development program led by a leader and creating an impact, not just at a business level or individual level or unit level, but at a national level. So this is an amazing example of an OD program with national impact, which means impact at a country level. So you will see that as an example, and then we'll move ahead to understand what are the dimensions of organizational effectiveness. You will see some of them in the video, and what is the overall process of OD, the how of OD. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off the camera while the video is playing. After the video, we'll talk a little, take a short break, and then we'll resume our conversation on organizational effectiveness dimensions. Yeah.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to tell you the story of the first indigenous semi-high-speed train built in India. This
Akriti, can you confirm? Can you hear the video and is it
Yes, sir.
visible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
was a homegrown product, a rolling stock, a railway vehicle from concept to design to engineer to manufacture to validation and testing, done entirely by a team of Chennai railwaymen. This is not the story of one man. This is the story of a Chennai team which has showed to the world that India can also do it. I come to you as a railwayman for life. Indian Railways have a long 170-year-old history and legacy, a lot of romance, the fight for that window seat through which the marvel of Indian way of life, the magic of India passed you by. Lifeline of the nation, as they say, but I'm not here to talk to you about that romance. I'm going to talk to you about this. As a young boy and as a railwayman, I always wondered why our trains for last 50, 60, 70 years look the same. And why not a modern train set with higher speed, more comfort and better aesthetics? Well, what's a modern train set? You're familiar with a train which has a number of coaches and a locomotive on either end. They get coupled and decoupled as per requirement at destination for maintenance. But a modern train set is a number of coaches permanently coupled together, and all the equipment for powering, air conditioning, lighting and what have you is all placed on the train. There is no locomotive. Now it has many advantages. It has redundancy, comfort, it is more efficient, the maintainability is better. Added to that, we have this reversal problem in other coaches. This train can reverse itself. Since you can pack more equipment on the train, it has more power, more speed and more acceleration and more deceleration as well. From one cab to the other cab, if it's a 16-coach train like our own train, you can walk from one end to another without realizing that you are crossing a coach to coach because they're wide gangways with a lot of comfort. So if it has so many advantages, and this is the trend world over for last 25, 30 years, they don't make for this speed range any locomotive haul train. Why is it that we don't have these trains? The answer, I'm sorry, is not very complimentary to Indian Railways, because we have departments. One department maintains the coaches, another one maintains the locomotives. Now everything is on one. So who's going to own it? Whose empire is it going to be? And that fight for last 25, 30 years with debates and procrastination, and we reach nowhere. In addition, there has been a lobby to import these trains. Long time, another lobby opposing it, which was losing the empire. Fortunately, the import did not take place, but mine was a lone voice. I was a part of the lobbying as well, but I always said that you can't stop a good thing, you can delay it. So why not sit down and decide what's good for the country and give it to us? But it remained, my lone voice, just a dream. In August 2016, I was due to become a general manager, and I asked for and was posted in Integral Coach Factory, Chennai. This was set up in 1950s, the vision of the then Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, to make India self-reliant, in this case, self-reliant in making world-class current technology coaches. It has gone through many expansions since then. Numbers keep rising. But if we even have a world record for having made the maximum number of coaches in the world, but more of the same. In 1950s, Premier Chow En Lai came to ICF and said, Every Orient should be proud of this factory. I would like Chinese engineers to come and learn here as to how to make coaches. But the vision was never realized because of more of the same, numbers, no variety. And today, where are we? We are far behind. We make a beeline to go to China and learn from them. Well, when I landed, I found a very dedicated and great team of officers. My fortune is already there in ICF. And the staff, the design and the manufacturing staff, they had this ennui written on their face. More of the same, doing more of the same. They were raring to go. They had that technical chutzpah, that audacity to try something new, and it needed channelization. Well, adopting some simple measures of leadership like empathy, like openness, shedding of the stifling protocol and bureaucracy that you have in railways, welcoming ideation and recognizing those who work and coming down hard on those who did not, we started making some progress. One example, in our foyer of the administrative block, we had this place, corner, like most government offices, where the janitor used to keep brooms and buckets. We transformed it into a family tree. All 11,000 faces, not one smaller one, not one bigger, all placed there, and it became a place for selfies. And this was the new ICF, which was trying to burgeon, and this was my opportunity. More of the same, but an exponential growth in outturn. And in 2018, when we make 2,500 three coaches, we thought we became the biggest factory in the world. And next year, when we made 3,262, we settled all out and became the biggest factory in the world. Only factory, through some large-scale solar installation, we became the only carbon negative company of Indian Railways, generating more renewable energy than consuming. 12.5 megawatt was generation, 12 megawatt was our consumption. Picasso has said that art is a way of washing away the dust of everyday life from your soul. It exhilarates, uplifts, motivates. Why not try visual art as a means to encourage engineering motivation? So I tried visual art all over the factory, sculpture from scrap, and people wonder whether Integral Coach Factory today is an art gallery in a factory or a factory in an art gallery. And we attacked this more of the same business also on a smaller scale. In 2 years, we did have some trains which are now running. Turned out where the look was changed, all using the same staff and the same officers. This was my opportunity to do something more and bigger. When I am with a smaller audience, I ask as to do anything, anywhere, what do you need? First and foremost, answers, leadership, passion, will, determination. But I say, the answer is very simple. Love what you do. And from that follows, you love your organization, you love your colleagues. Start with love. Because human resource is your most important resource, irrespective of all the machines and wherewithal you can have. Unless they are with you, you will not lead anywhere. One poet has said that इस लफ्ज़ से मोहब्बत का अदना सा फसाना है. This word love has a small story. सिमटे तो दिले आशिक, फैले तो जमाना है. We all talk of all the ills all around us. Everything is bad, a lot of concerns, but we forget that small dot of influence where we can work and do something. शिकवा जुल्मत शब्द से कहीं बेहतर होता. It's better than complaining about darkness कि अपने हिस्से की एक शम्मा जलाते जाते. This was the time to light the candle of my dream. And we are told that you must live your dream. First you must look after yourself, your bread and butter, but don't let that dream die. You never know when the opportunity will present itself and you can realize your dream. And this was the time for me. So Platform, vision, fortune was with me, opportunity. But there were doubts and challenges. First doubt, where is the sanction? You need to get it from the ministry. So I said, I'm your leader, I'll go to the ministry, get you the sanction. But what a foolhardy person I was. In the railway board, derision, skepticism, negativity. So this guy is trying to spin a yarn. I was not going anywhere, but the chairman railway board knew me. I went to him. I said, do you think we can do it? He said, I think you can do it, but railway board is holding me back. I said, you are the chairman. You import what you want. Give me a sanction for 2 trains. And I will do it at 1/3 the cost. And if you are not going to do it, I am falling at your feet. Right now, not leaving it till you give me the sanction. Ladies and gentlemen, somebody will kill your vanity someday. It's better that you kill it yourself today. I come back to my team and I said, here's the sanction. Let's move. They said, yes, we are capable, we'll do it. But what if we fail? 200 crores, who will be the scapegoat? Our doubts are traitors which make us lose the good we might win by fearing to attempt. गिरते हैं शहसवार ही मैदान जंग में. Only a mounted soldier falls in a battlefield. वो तिफल क्या गिरे जो घुटनों के बल चले. The days of your crawling are over. You will be a mounted soldier, all of you. And if we deliver this good train, first of its kind in India, the credit is all yours. If we fail, this old man is going to retire in 1 year. What can they do to him? Don't worry. Now, from now on, the team will connect. Kill your vanity, and if you make a mistake, own up. Because from every mistake, you will learn and become a better engineer. Sometimes fault can be worse than the excuse. That done, they said, what will be our mode? We have been getting all these trains, all these 60, 70 years through technology transfer. You bring in, you order on a multinational, you bring in some trains, then knock down kits, then you start making it, but you make it worse than what you brought 15 years back. Why? Because technology cannot be transferred. It's an oxymoron. Technology is not just a set of drawings and specifications and documents. It lives in the mind and the heart of the creator. Can you transfer that? So we will do it on our own, good or bad. We will not look up to anybody sitting on a high pedestal. It will be entirely our train, and we are going to make it. Yes, but the Bard has also said that you should never be a foolish wise person. You should be a wise fool. There may be some areas like a bogie design which has never been done, which we can't do. So we will engage consultants. Consultant has no stake in supplying in future. He will sit with you. That's the contract. Every single line that he draws, every word that he writes in the spec will be done along with you so that you learn, and the entire know-how, entire know-why, the entire IPR is with us. And that's how this model worked. And only one more doubt, they said, that we are in April 17, such a project usually takes 36 to 42 months. You will retire in December 18, we'll be left midway. New leader may say that, why are you doing this risky job? More of the same is better. I said, yes, that's a problem. But I have a solution. Our mind may not be where the European or the American or the Japanese mind is, but we are Indians, we can work like donkeys. गधों की तरह काम कर सकते हैं और गधों की तरह काम करेंगे दिन रात 24/7. We will turn out this train before December 2018. Calendar year 2018, and to remind everyone, this train is being called Train 18 from today. And now, if you have it in you, the purpose, courage, and the valor, this is the time to show it. This was the beginning and, in a way, end of my story, because rest is a matter of only hard work, glitches, hitches, but synergy, solving it. And as we were building it, some hype was also created, so we were apprehensive that what if we fails. But anyway, fortune was with us because we were working hard, Come 27th October, the train was finally unveiled in a ceremony unparalleled in any factory of Indian Railways, with Dolu Kunita band from Bangalore, flurry of that. And after that, the train was sent to trial and validation online. And sometime in the first week of December, the first time any train in India went above 180 kilometers per hour, reached that speed. Some more tests and validations, and it was put in service as Vande Bharat Express by the Prime Minister himself, running between Varanasi and Delhi. Ladies and gentlemen, we just built a train. It's not a rocket or Chandrayaan. But the love we got from the countrymen, why? Because I thought, the first time they thought, that this was a product of our own, made by us. And 1,000 such projects are burgeoning, ladies and gentlemen. All it needs is leadership with passion, empathy, and a sense of purpose. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So that was Sudhanshu Mani, who is known as the architect of Vande Bharat train, and his story of how did he really bring about this change in the mindset of the people? How did he lead this change to make something happen? And then, of course, ensuring that results come. So we know that today there are more than 130 Vande Bharat trains in operations. And all this is really about an organization story, but it's more a culture story from an old style factory way of working to a center that innovated and created something new, something different that is really making waves today as far as the country is concerned. So teamwork, collaboration, culture of innovation, leadership, uh, I'm sure while they were making this, there must have been lots of conflicts, yeah, and mindset changes that needed to happen. A lot of it is also about the structure, the old way of working, which is bureaucratic, which is silo working. He talks about different departments had different jobs. Now all those jobs collapse to become one. So structural changes, all these things, and of course, maintaining the quality, the standards of performance, all this put together is the story of OD, organizational development. So, like we said, there's a method to this, there is a process to this. It doesn't just happen just like that. You have to do something to make it happen. And what is that something that needs to happen? We'll first talk about that, and then we will go to how to make it happen. So we'll take a quick short 10 minutes break, and it's 12:20, so we'll start at 12:30, and we'll look at another 40 minutes of discussion on different dimensions of organizational effectiveness, because that's really what you're trying to do through OD. You're trying to make organization more effective. So we'll talk about the dimensions of OD, and just a quick sneak peek into the process of OD if we have the time. So quick 10 minutes break before we get together again. Just give me a minute. We'll get started. Yeah, all right. So we use the first session to just get familiar with the concept of OD. And we saw one very good example of what can OD result into. So just another way of understanding this is to look at what do we mean when we say that we want to make an organization effective or even more effective. So what's coming up on the screen, you will see, is a set of dimensions. Yeah. This is also a good way to understand what does any organization comprise of. We a while back said any OD program or a change program can't be a piecemeal program. It has to be a complete total system change. Now, what do we mean by that? And let me just go to my slide. Yeah. So here is what it is. Okay. So let's say we want to make the organization effective. Means what? Okay. Another simple English word for effectiveness is make the organization better. Okay. Now, better in terms of what? And here are the different dimensions. Okay. One, make better in terms of, and this is not in an order, make the organization better in terms of structure. So any organization has a structure, hierarchy, network of positions, roles and responsibilities. So when this structure is not right, which means that it is not helping you achieve your objective, then it needs to change. It needs to get better. It needs to be flexible enough. So today we hear a lot about flat organizational structures because generally the tall organizational structure, the hierarchy is all connected to aspects like delays in decision making, people not feeling accountable. There is no clarity in terms of who's doing what, or there is a very narrow description of your roles and responsibilities. A lot of government organizations are perceived to be very bureaucratic, which means they have a very tall structure, which also means people are doing an extremely specialized job. By definition, specialization means narrowness. That narrowness does not excite people. They feel stuck in a job for a very long time because the hierarchy is too tall. The upward movement of people is very slow. All this impacts the organization's effectiveness. So one dimension of organizational effectiveness is the organization structure. Yeah. Another dimension is the vision of the organization. Now, what is this dimension? Vision is a dream. The organization has a dream, and one aspect of this dream is it exciting enough for people? Does this dream drive people to give their best every day? Is this dream shared in the organization? In many cases, people don't even know the vision of the organization. So, are we living the vision? Is there enough focus on the vision? Are we communicating the vision enough? Is the vision clear enough? Is the vision being lived or implemented, reinforced? All these are aspects around the vision of the company. So in some cases, definition is a problem. In some cases, communication is a problem. In some cases, application is the problem. And therefore, vision needs to get better. Right? That's what we mean when we say organizational effectiveness. Then there is leadership. What about leadership? Let us say performance of leaders, the quality of leadership. Is the leadership capable enough to lead the organization into the future? Is there enough development of leadership? Are we growing leaders from within? Are we able to attract people in the leadership roles from outside? Is there a shared leadership? Now, all these are aspects which are connected to leadership as a dimension of organizational effectiveness. And today we know from experience that a lot of organizations are investing in leadership development because they know that that's an investment that is going to lead the organization into the future. And that's an investment that they have to make because ultimately the business is at stake if you don't develop leaders. So that's the leadership dimension. Then there is the people dimension. Now, what about people? Yeah, and you can say people/employees. One element could be engagement of people, development of people. Then how are people organized? The quality of relationships amongst people. Are they committed enough? So all these are aspects of the people dimension of the organization that needs to get better if the organization has to get better. Then there is an organizational effectiveness dimension around external environment. Now, this is very interesting. In one of my recent consulting assignments, I had a very interesting dialogue with a group of leaders in this company where they thought one thing that the company lacks or has to become better is its ability to read external environment. The radar system, as we call it, has to get better, which means as an organization, do you have the right systems, processes, even culture and mindset to look outside and see what's happening outside? Most leaders, most companies are so inwardly focused that often the changes in the external environment are not even noticed, and such organizations are shocked when these changes come and hit them. Like in today's context, we know that if you're an organization in any business, you can't stay away from artificial intelligence as a technology. But if you close your eyes to what's happening in the technology environment, you could be a manufacturing company. But if you are not attuned to the external environment, which has artificial intelligence as a big change happening, then you are in trouble, because that technology will come to your company, your sector very, very fast. So knowing the external environment, being aware of it, connecting with external environment continuously is a very, very important aspect of what makes your organization effective. Now, you would have heard of values. In a very simple way, values are those things which the organization believes are important. Like, for example, customer centricity, innovation, listening as a value, right? So all these values which you consider important and you behave accordingly. Now, like vision, even in values, the problems or challenges are varied. Have you defined your values? Have you communicated your values? Have you integrated your values with your various people and cultural processes? For example, do you reward people for living the values? Otherwise, values remain just words on the wall of the company, nothing more than that. Then are you relooking at values periodically to see if they are relevant anymore? So all these aspects around values are factors that impact organizational effectiveness, because a lot of times, if values are just words written on the wall, people don't care about them. Whereas values are in the spirit expected to drive organizational behavior. So organizational effectiveness and values are connected through articulation, communication, reinforcement, integration of values in people processes, in the day-to-day life of employees in the company. Are leaders demonstrating role modeling values? So all these factors are about what makes organizations effective as far as values are concerned. Then strategy. Now, fundamentally, what is strategy? It's a plan of action that a company has, which makes it competitive, which gives it a competitive advantage. Therefore, again, does the company have a strategy? Does it focus on strategy? Does it review the strategy periodically? Is the strategy based on data, critical thinking? Is the strategy well communicated within the company? Are your short-term, long-term behaviors aligned to strategy? The worst thing about strategy is that you might have a strategy, but what you are doing on a day-to-day basis could be very different. Now that's terrible, right? Then what's the point in having a strategic plan? So strategy again is connected to organizational effectiveness, apart from the fact that it directly makes the company competitive. Ultimately, it's not important just to have a strategy, right? You have to execute on that strategy. So a lot of companies lack that execution capability because they are saying something and they're doing something else. Then it's about culture. It's a way of life. What's the definition of culture? It's a way of life. So have you defined the way of life? Are you doing things that are aligned with your way of life? You say that the no-do gap, as we call it. You say something else, you do something else. It confuses people. On one hand, you're saying, hey, we have a culture of freedom at every level in the company. But in the day-to-day way of working, you are exhibiting a highly control freak behavior, control driven behavior. Your processes and systems don't allow for any empowerment. then people don't know what culture to live. You're saying one kind of culture, you're doing another kind of culture. Relationships, very, very important. Relationships across levels, let's say the supervisor and the team members relationships, relationship of management with union, then relationships based on trust and mutual respect. All these factors make an organization effective or ineffective based on what happens in the organization. And well, like there is internal relationship, there's also customer relationship. How do you engage with your customers? Because a lot of times your customer relationship also impacts your culture. Normally, we say that your employees can't give your customers what they themselves don't have. If they don't have information, they can't give information to the customers. If they are not motivated, they can't motivate the customers to buy. So a lot of these factors are interrelated. And like we said, ultimately, what is the goal? The goal is how do you make an organization effective? And that has to do with all these dimensions. Ultimately, when you say effectiveness, it's got to do with results and relationships. Because sometimes you don't get the results, but if you have good, strong relationships internally and externally, you can catch up on the results, isn't it? Of course, the other way around, you build great relationships and you also need to convert these relationships into results by proper systems, processes, culture, strategy, all that. So this is what is the organizational effectiveness definition. It's about getting results through positive, trust-based relationships. And all these are really the sub-dimensions of organizational effectiveness. So what is OD trying to do? OD as a field of study is helping you become more effective. Yeah. That's really what OD does. All right, okay. So last quick discussion before we close today's session is about why OD. So if OD is so important, then what is the importance of OD? And here is how we can define the importance of OD. Okay, that's also the reason why I said, being qualified in OD can also enable our career to grow very fast, because all these are direct contributions that we make as OD professionals to the business. So why do you need OD? What are the business drivers of OD? One, there is need for speed, isn't it? Any business that you are in today, if you are slow, you are surely going to be beaten up by your competitors. Because getting to your customers fast with great products, great services, reasonable price, innovative ideas, all this requires the organization to run fast and run well, run in a balanced way. And that has a lot to do with your culture. If you don't have the right culture, you can't get speed. A lot of times people actually equate speed with trust. If you have low trust, your speed also slows down because then you have to put a lot of control processes and checking processes because you don't trust. If you have a high trust, then you move fast because then people at every level can make decisions that are in the best interest of the customers. So need for speed. Like we said, if the organization was not under competitive pressure, then why does one need OD? You probably don't need OD because then, things can happen at its own pace, randomly, doesn't matter. But today with the competitive environment growing very fast, not just national, but international, not just local, but global competition. If you have to become competitive, then you have to become effective. Then increase pressure for profits. Because if you're a company that has borrowed money from the market, yeah, then people are looking for returns. And a part of those returns come from profits. Therefore, you have to make money, which means that you have to be competitive enough. You can't just do this for 1 month and get away with it, right? You have to be sustainable. You need to have practices which help you grow your business in a sustained way. You can't have a situation where 1 quarter you grow, another quarter you fall, then again you do some scrambling and do better in the next quarter, then again next quarter you fall. That's not sustainable growth, right? So you need sustainable business practices, which can only come from culture. Yeah. Every business at the end of the day is a people business. So you need engaged employees. You have to retain them. If there's a huge cost of attrition, some companies calculate that, some companies don't. But yet, when you lose good people, well-trained people, experienced people, there's a huge cost that the company bears. And of course, if your cost component goes up, your profit component goes down, as simple as that. So employee engagement, employee retention, and again, what kind of a culture will your employees feel engaged in? What kind of culture will they want to work for a very long period of time? Is anybody's guess. So if you have a culture that is empowering, culture that promotes learning, culture that encourages collaboration, a culture that's based on trust and respect. So how do you build all this is really what OD deals with. That's why you need OD. Yeah, sure, organizations are becoming more competitive. As a part of that, they are restructuring, they're collapsing roles, they are shrinking the levels, they are hiving off businesses, they are integrating other businesses, mergers, acquisitions, restructuring. All this is change. And helping people deal with this change better can give you all the advantages of restructuring. If people don't support and behave in a manner that is required from them, then restructuring fails. In fact, 70% of mergers acquisitions fail, not because there was anything wrong with the financial books, but the two cultures could not match. The facilitation required to match the different types of cultures didn't happen effectively, which means OD didn't happen effectively in those companies. So restructuring failed. Millions of dollars are lost. And of course, you also know today that there's scarcity of leadership talent. So how do you create an organization that invites leadership development as an important element of running the organization, giving it the attention that it deserves, developing leaders from within, and the leaders who can help your organization? So all these are why OD is important for any business. And all these are not just business, of course, even if you're a not-for-profit organization, even then, yeah, probably the word profits will get replaced with resources. Other things remain the same. So whether you are for profit or not for profit, whether even if you're a university, yeah, if you ask the leadership team at Symbiosis University, they will tell you the same thing. They also need to develop leaders from within. They also have the pressure of utilizing the available resources effectively. There is, of course, a lot of competition there. So they need to create a learning place where best students like you come and apply and want to be a part of such institutions. They also have staff and talent that they need to engage and retain. So all these elements remain the same. So don't take the word business only for-profit business. It can also be not-for-profit business and yet have the same challenges why any good OD program is important in any organization today. And of course, apart from this, there are changes in the technology, there are changes in the customer expectations, there's globalization of business. All this requires change. And that's why OD is at the heart and core of running any organization effectively. So let me stop here and in a way summarize this session that we have looked at the concept of OD, both the definition as well as in a layman's language, we looked at what OD is about. We talked about each of those elements in the OD definition. We also covered what are the different dimensions of organizational effectiveness that OD addresses. And we talked about and looked at what is the significance of OD in today's context. Yeah. As we go along in this session, in this course, we'll also talk about the process of OD, the tools and techniques of OD, what we in the OD language call organizational development interventions. We'll also talk about how to collect data that can tell us where is improvement required, what improvement is required. The action research component, where we said in understanding what is the first step before we go to what to change, right? So we're going to talk about each element of OD. We're going to talk about the interventions in OD. And of course, we'll also touch upon what are different roles in OD. What's the role of an OD consultant? Should you have an internal consultant, external consultant? What are the advantages and disadvantages of each? All this we will cover as we go along. Yeah. So I'll see you in the next session now. Akriti, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Have a good day.
You too.